Welcome everybody to Indivisible Text Ledge Live. It is January 20th, 2021. And this is a pretty big day of significance for Americans all over the country because it will be the inauguration of the new president of the United States of America, which will be President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. So I know that a lot of people are paying attention to that news. We're going to slip in before those ceremonies start to talk about the 87th Texas Legislature. And joining me is the amazing Robert Norris. Robert, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much, Alex.
Well, we're going to take some of your time this morning to dive into the Senate committee assignments that the 87th Texas Legislature made before adjourning last week. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick made the assignments for the Senate committees. And we're going to just kind of walk through some preliminary information, just to kind of walk through the website as well, so you understand where to get this information, where the Texas Senate and the 87th Legislature will have information available for you, so you can ultimately stay informed. This process of Senate committee chair assignments and Senate committee assignments, Robert, is usually, I think you referenced in past live sessions, these discussions and the I guess convincing of getting the chair assignments or assignments happen, weeks before they actually happen.
Yes, yeah, they certainly did. And really the big surprises were not things that really was going to matter a whole lot. The only thing I think that mattered in terms of the Senate was just, what kind of COVID procedures and restrictions they're going to have. The assignments themselves are interesting. Mostly to me, there's some key members that I'm okay with and not okay with on these committees. Just generally because of the past that I had at the LBB and testifying and watching them. But I know that the biggest committee that everyone's going to be paying attention to, I guess really three in my mind. One is redistricting, one is finance, education, health and human services, criminal justice. But the assignments themselves, to a great extent, pretty much mirrored what they have been in the past, especially on the finance committee and education. There's just some replacements in the Democrats and some shifting around. Well, why don't we dive in and start looking at the assignments then?
Yeah. Well, we're going to pull up for everyone the Texas Senate website. So let's pull that up for everybody. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit just to see if we can get a little bit bigger for everybody on their screen. So linked within our post is the Texas Senate website, which is the place that they're going to have the information, the links, and the updates for you. So this is their main page. A lot of different information that you can dive into here, but specifically for today, we're going to go into the committees tab within this page. And there's a couple of key things that you can see at the top of their website: hearings and events, committee archives, so you can look at past legislative sessions within that space. And then Legislature Online, TLO, we won't dive into a whole lot, but you'll hear us reference today. And then there's a PDF version of the committee assignments, which you can get the breakdown of all of the assignments that were made for the 87th Legislature. So this is what we're going to dive into a little bit, just to highlight a few of the things that kind of stick out. But as Robert was saying, there's a number of committees. There's some that I guess have a little bit more weight in the impact that they make for Texans. And so I think the number was 15, right? 15 standing committees we have listed here.
Yes.
For the 87th legislation. And then these two special committees, the Select Committee on Ports and Special Committee on Redistricting. And so when you click on this link for each committee, you'll see the committee information, and then they'll have archives of any video or audio that have been shared, and then a link via TLO to get additional information on this. So I think the first one we clicked on, the first one that's listed, Robert, the Senate Committee on Administration,
Mhm.
had a little bit of news around it.
It did. The chairman, Charles Schwartner, he's a doctor in Georgetown, had resigned his position as chair of the Senate Health and Human Services Committee after there were allegations of sexual assault and sexual abuse, and well, it was really just, kind of lewd conduct for the most part. He was cleared by UT when UT Austin did an investigation, but that cloud hung over him, and he didn't want that to get in the way of the committee being able to do his business. So that happened, and then now you see that Lieutenant Governor has appointed him to be the chair of the Senate Administration Committee. They don't do an awful lot. They're mostly all about making sure that the Senate can function properly, administrative matters, really. There's some local resolutions and things like that they pay attention to. But as you can see, it's a relatively small committee, and it's still a way of saying for the lieutenant governor to say to the public that he has full confidence in Senator Schwartner, and everything's okay now.
And one thing to point out is that the committee specifically has a telephone number for people to contact that specific committee for if they want to contact them. But then this is something we've highlighted over past live sessions, is that if there's something the Committee on Administration or any committee is either taking on, whether they're hearing a bill or hearing testimony in a bill, or they're trying to push forward on a bill that we want to support or stop, with the Texas Legislature, we have an opportunity to contact any of these members to tell them what our position is on a particular bill. And so with the Senate committee information being organized, you can click into the links that they have here and get more information on those particular committee members as well as their contact information. So all of this is organized for you on the Texas Senate page. And just to highlight what Robert was sharing, we have it linked within our post as well. This is the Texas Tribune article that kind of breaks down what happened last legislative session, why the senator stepped down, and the investigation that took place. And so they concluded that while available evidence did not support a finding, it did not clear him of any wrongdoing. So it was kind of, something that they couldn't declare one way or another. But a lot of great information in terms of this, event that happened from the last legislative session and the impact for this current legislative session. So let's back up into the list of committees. And we may not have time to really dive into all of these, but we want to really highlight some key ones. So Robert, what is the next committee that you think would be great to kind of just look at who the committee chair is and the committee members?
Well, why don't you click on redistricting, and we can just talk for a minute about the members. Exactly what they're going to do, when they're going to do it is yet to be seen. But I believe they have a list of meetings, though, they're going to have throughout the session. So in a minute, that'll be important. Joan Huffman was also I believe, a county judge or district judge in Houston. She's a Houston area Republican. Juan Chuy Hinojosa is an amazing man. I've always had enormous respect for him. For a long time, he was the vice chair of the Senate Finance Committee, and really knew process, knew how to work things, very low drama, stick to the business, smart man. And you can see there's kind of a mix of Democrats and Republicans, and of course the Republicans have a majority. But I would say I'm very happy that Senator West and Senator Menendez are on this committee. They're really, and Senator Alvarado, those are really some important Democrats that we should be paying attention to. Senator Betancourt has never been one of my favorite people. He's a person that's, and you'll see this in one of his committees, he's very, well, just for like, he's very down. He's very down on public education, very pro-voucher, wants to make sure that local governments, well, from my point of view, are starved of resources. He's just always been that kind of guy. Yeah.
Yeah, so
The rest of them are not really that remarkable. For me, they're not that remarkable. They're just kind of your doctrinaire Republicans. Some of them work harder than others. But this will be a very busy committee.
Yeah, and as we've shared, the redistricting process is going to be critical. This is an every 10-year process. Right now, the census data is pending. There's a whole host of maps being built by individual Texans, by organizations, by even legislative members, so that they can utilize the projected data to kind of figure out how the maps can be built. But nothing official can really move or happen until that census data is released. And so we're hearing that it may take a little bit longer for the census data to be released. So what the redistricting committee is going to be able to really focus on and do in this area is really going to be something we're going to be keeping an eye on because of that process. And as Robert shared, there's going to be tentative regional hearing dates that the redistricting committee is going to have. And so starting January 25th, they're going to be focusing on different regions within Texas. And so all testimony is welcome at any hearing, regardless of the regional focus of that hearing. Is a little special note they have on the bottom. And future hearing dates and regional focus areas are to be determined. And so people will start participating in these hearings and giving testimony around these particular areas. All right, well, let's take another step back at the committee listing here. Robert, what is the next key one you'd like to dive into?
Finance, the Finance Committee. This is the Budget Committee for the Senate. What's interesting here is they handle not only the budget, but also the tax and revenue bills too. So they're kind of your all-in-one money committee for the Senate. And Jane Nelson, she was the chair last time. Senator Lucio, he's been on and off the committee, but he was awarded a vice chair. He's also vice chair of Senate Education. And to be honest, he's a hardworking, good man, but he's not somebody I've ever been overly impressed with in terms of taking on, important causes. He's a very strong pro-life man that follows his religious convictions, and that's fine. I mean, I can't say anything about that. But in terms of where, what he does in the Senate tends to be on the moderate to almost conservative side. And he will go along. He will not get in the way. He's kind of a go along guy. And let's see. Yeah, the Democrats here are Royce West and John Whitmire, along with Eddie Lucio. This is not, they've really packed this committee with Republicans this time in a huge way. I think that it used to be a few more Democrats, if I'm not mistaken. The star here, in my opinion, is always going to be Royce West. He's also always a voice of reason. He's very smart, very hardworking man. And he can stop things right in their tracks during a committee meeting and give people this look of, really? Are you kidding? Do you really know what you're talking about? I don't know why you're saying that. It doesn't make any sense. And he will, just talk about things in a, kind of, that doesn't make any sense kind of point of view. Anyway, I'm a big fan of Royce West. The other Democrat, we could go back for a minute, John Whitmire. very smart man, but he's all about criminal justice. He's going to be chair. He's the only Democrat who's going to be a chair of a committee this time, criminal justice, which he's chaired for, I don't know, ever since time was created. He's been on that committee a long time. And, you know, it's well, I think other folks in Texas Leg have a really good perspective on John Whitmire, but he tends to kind of get in the way of some major reforms that should be happening in criminal justice. But his whole thing will be about TDCJ and what TDCJ does and what DPS does. Those are the two main things. And all of these folks, once they get started, well, why don't we save the rest of what I'm going to say for Budget 101, but just to say that this committee is going to be working hard for several months, and then they come out with their appropriation bill, their version of it, the committee version. So I would say the one person who's always good for some, curious information is Donna Campbell. Frequently gets her facts wrong, maybe getting things, more in shape in her mind, but an all around odd person. Yeah, like I say, why don't we save the rest for a Budget 101 Text Ledge Live?
I'm going to pull up Senator Jane Nelson,
Yes.
simply because she happens to be my senator as well. But she, as a former teacher, I know there's been a lot of advocacy efforts in Tarrant County, talking to Senator Nelson, especially in the last legislative session, around education and school finance, and trying to figure out how we can help prioritize that in the Senate committee and the finance committee. And so I know a lot of work is going to probably continue to be there, because now with COVID-19, there's really a need, and with the education huddle's priorities around education financing to stay a priority. The hope is that Senator Nelson will be a supporter in that space with her experience and with her position as chair of the finance committee. So it'll be interesting to see, what kind of things she's pushing for as a chair of this particular committee, and how it would impact education specifically. Let's take a look, and you had mentioned other Indivisible Text Ledge organizers kind of had an opinion on Senator Whitmire, and Senator Whitmire was given the chair of the Criminal Justice Committee. And I do want to share the information that was provided to us from the Criminal Justice Committee that Indivisible Text Ledge is helping, be a part of and help facilitate with a lot of different allied organizations, and advocates within this space. And their perspective is that it's just very discouraging that, Whitmire is an establishment Democrat who loves blocking great bills, and the rest of the committee is crowded with Republicans, giving the other two Democrats little room to push for good things. The coalition, the Criminal Justice Coalition, is very disappointed in that committee makeup. And this is a great point that they make in terms of, the chair makes an impact, but also the makeup of the committee in terms of what that could, lead to what bills are prioritized or not prioritized that impact, our legislative priorities. Okay, let's take a step back. I think we have time probably to dig into one more committee, Robert.
Mm-hmm.
What committee is of interest of you to kind of dive into?
Well, education. Senate Education Committee. Again, we see Senator Lucio as the vice chair. Like I was saying, he's gotten some plum assignments here. Larry Taylor has been chair of the Senate Education Committee for at least 2, maybe 3 sessions. And, a generally pretty conservative guy on education. He's a big backer of charter schools. Is just fine with vouchers. Although, I think the teacher associations were very effective at making sure that, and making the Senate kind of pay attention to not going whole hog on vouchers. But he was the man who was, of course, the Senate sponsor of House Bill 3, the huge public education and school finance reform bill. And generally very, like I've been saying, hardworking, low drama, nose to the grindstone kind of guy. And I don't know exactly where Senate Ed is going to be going in terms of their priorities this session, but the main things you've heard from everybody is we're not going to go back on the promises that were made in House Bill 3. You've heard that from a lot of different places, from the Speaker, members of the Senate. So it'll be interesting to see, where they go on, like I say, the kind of commitments that were made under House Bill 3 for changing the way that school finance works, as well as some other important legislation. I will say that Senator Menendez has filed a lot of bills, pre-filed a lot of bills, several of them having to do with education, and some of them have to do with the intersection of COVID and education. So he's going to be, he was a really good representative in the House. I always was impressed with him. I will say early on in his career, he and another House member, when I was at the LBB, I was doing something in the extension, sitting down, writing notes. And he and another member came up to me and said, "Hey, what would happen if we combined the employees retirement system and the teacher retirement system?" Just the kind of idea you would expect from somebody who's just getting started. We can save a lot of money. We can cut down on administrative expenses. Wow, why don't we do this? And I said, well, both are established in the Constitution, first of all. So that's kind of a hurdle right there. The other is they both have pretty strong associations backing them. Don't know if you want to mess with that. And they both kind of smiled and said, okay, that was it.
It's an excellent point, though, that newly elected officials do have a little bit of a learning curve as they jump into the chaos and speed of the state legislature.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out and get your thoughts, because I think, you had mentioned Royce West as a committee member in one of the other committees we talked about, which is a great voice in the committee to be able to move that kind of common sense approach. But also Senator Beverly Powell out of District 10, her hometown is Burleson, also in Tarrant County, so that's why I'm a little more familiar with her. But she has been very impressive in terms of supporting public education and really, being a leading voice in trying to have solutions around education for Texans, but in a whole host of areas as well. And so this committee assignment for her in education, I think, is great, and as well as, just the work she's going to be doing as a senator in the legislature. And let's see. And, as we mentioned, HB3 from last legislative session, I think it's still an indicator that progress in education may ultimately still be coming out of the House versus the Senate. The hope is that the Senate doesn't derail anything that maybe the House is willing to push for. But we'll wait until that conversation happens when we dive into the House committees to see what those committees are going to look like, because those haven't been made yet. And so it'll be interesting to see ultimately the entire landscape around education when it comes to committees.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we also want to highlight for everyone on this website that there will be live broadcasts that you can check out. TLO, which is the Texas Legislature Online tool, is something that you'll want to make sure that you are plugged into. You'll be able to see the meetings for dates, get alerts around key legislation. We will be following that with our issue huddles, and we'll be giving updates around that. But this is a great tool for everyone to kind of get comfortable with and learn about. And we'll have another session where we dive into some of these other committees, as well as bring some partners on to talk about these committees as the work really starts moving forward. with what they're going to be doing. And so even though it's a week where the legislature is not in session, there's still a lot of work being done, especially once these kind of decisions are made. You know, Dade Phelan being named Speaker of the House on day one, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick making these Senate committee assignments. It really starts to help organizations understand, you know, where the work's going to need to be focused on and where the opportunities may be to move legislation forward that is going to be positive and productive for all Texans.
Just one more thing to say, Alex, you know, for committee watchers is that in the past, committees have decided, well, we're going to meet on this particular day at about this particular time every week. So, you know, that gives you some regularity, and they try to meet at the same committee room every time that they meet, so that's got some, you know, normality to it. But that was last session. This session, we'll see.
Yeah, and this is where, you know, the Senate rules that were adopted last week, the committee rules can differ in terms of what they decide and what they make available. And so we'll see if there's any differences within these different spaces and continue to inform everybody on that information. And so a lot more decisions need to be made for us to understand how we're going to be able to interact. And Robert, that's a great point on their schedule to see, you know, what is that going to look like for this legislative session? A lot of unknowns, unfortunately. So we'll keep an eye on it and keep, you know, sharing with everybody here.
Great.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We know that there may be a bigger priority on a lot of people's mind today, with January 20th being such a significant day. And so if you didn't check us out live, definitely follow up and check this out when you have a chance, and we will continue to come join you on the live sessions with more content, more information as we highlight what's happening in the state legislature of Texas. All right. Hope everyone has a great day.
For sure. Have a great